Spider-Man 3. Now, Spider-Man 3 was released in 2007 and is set by Sam Raimi. It stars Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst, and Franco, with Bryce, Topher Grace, Haden Church, and J.K. Simmons. And basically, according to IMDb, this is a plot synopsis for Spider-Man 3. A strange black entity from another world bonds with Peter Parker and causes inner turmoil as he contends with new villains, temptations, and revenge. Wow, that was a plot for Spider-Man 3. I mean, I watched the film last night, and I didn't even realise that was the plot for Spider-Man 3, because the plot was just all over the place, and honestly, this film is bad. But I've got to admit, I still really enjoyed watching this film far more than I think I should have. Because honestly, it got to a point in this film that it was so bad and it was so stupid that I just sat there with a huge grin on my face through most of the film. And at the same time, though, I was unintentionally laughing through most of the film as well. I mean, this is the only Spider-Man film you would ever get where you have Peter Parker dancing to James Brown on the streets of New York, and you have Harry Osborn at one stage going on about how Mary Jane's lips tasted of strawberries and things like that. And honestly, just those things made me laugh out loud in the film far more than they really should have. Because honestly, there's so many scenes which just don't work in the film, and the film is all over the place. It's so weirdly fast-paced, and at the same time, though, it just doesn't work in so many aspects. You know, there's parts of the story in the film which contradict parts of the story in the first Spider-Man film or the second Sam Raimi Spider-Man film, and then you get to this film and you're just like, I'm sorry, what? Like the whole to do with Sandman, and I'm going to get into that a bit later on in this review, but at the same time, though, there's so many other things that just don't work in the film. But I've got to admit, it got to a point after a while that I didn't care about all the bad stuff that was going on, and I just really enjoyed it, because it was so different than any comic book movie or any Spider-Man movie made nowadays. Honestly, you'd never get any stuff in this film in any of the Tom Holland Spider-Man films nowadays, or you'd never get him in any comic movie nowadays, and that's why I liked it so much. The fact that it was different than, you know, those dull, boring, and bland superhero movies we get nowadays, and you get to this film, and it's not dull and boring. In fact, it's actually really entertaining, but for the wrong reasons. And I've got to admit, I just really enjoyed watching it. But at the same time, though, I do understand why it's rubbish. I mean, first of all, let's talk about the Mary Jane character in the film. You know, nothing against Kirsten Dunst. She does a good job in the film with what she's given. But what she's given in this film, it was really not anything to work with. Honestly, it really isn't. The Mary Jane character in the film is so boring to watch. And honestly, she just weighs down the rest of the film. Like, you have this whole stuff going on with Venom, New Goblin, Sandman, and there's all this stuff going on in the film. And then you get the Mary Jane storyline, and it's so boring and bland to watch it and everything. I understand where Mary Jane is unhappy in this film. You know, she lost her job, and Peter apparently not giving her enough attention. But at the same time, now, you know, he is Spider-Man. But anyway, yeah, I understand why she's unhappy in this film. But still, she's so boring to watch, and it almost feels like the writers of the film just didn't have a clue what to do with the Mary Jane character. So they got in all this stuff going on, I'm happy for most of the film, and it just weighs everything down. You know, you've got all this other stuff going on, which is all really messy, but it's still entertaining to watch, in my opinion. But then you get the whole stuff to do with Mary Jane, and it's just boring. At the same time, now, let's talk about the Venom character in the film. Now, I'm going to talk more in detail about this a bit later, how, you know, Sam Raimi, the director of the film, and Tobey Maguire, you know, Spider-Man himself, both wanted Sandman as the main villain in the film, but then Sony shoehorned Venom in there because of the growing popularity surrounding Venom before this film came out. So basically, Venom was shoehorned into the film, and I'm going to talk about that again a bit later in this review. But honestly, you can tell, because the whole stuff with Venom just feels completely out of place with the film. Honestly, it really does. And any blockbuster becomes Venom, his motive for killing Spider-Man in this film is simply that Peter got him fired from the Daily Bugle, and at the same time, though, Peter went on a date with Gwen Stacy, who went on a date with Eddie Brock once. That's literally Venom's motive for killing Spider-Man. The fact that Peter got him fired from a job, go and get another job, and then Peter also went on a date with Gwen Stacy, who Eddie Brock only went on a date with once. Get another girlfriend. Oh my god, it was just... that was such a bad motive in the film, and it's clear they just didn't know what they wanted to do with the Venom character in this film, because, you know, in the end, Topher Grace, who plays, you know, Eddie Brock, aka Venom in this film, he does, you know, a good job with what he's given, but I must admit, his performance didn't work for me in this film, but I think he's a great actor. I mean, I watched him in the Steven Soderbergh film Traffic, and he was great in that, but the thing is, though, in this film, he just come across as a bit weird and everything, and the whole Venom character just doesn't work in the film, and honestly, I was far more interested in the Sandman stuff, but then, when you have all the new Goblin stuff, with Harry Osborn and so on and so on and so on, then when you have all the Venom stuff, all the Sandman stuff feels like a bit too much in there. It almost feels like the film is trying to do all these things, and then we have this whole Sandman stuff. It almost feels like too much. It's like weird mix. Like the Venom stuff doesn't work. The new Goblin stuff's all a bit weird. You know, strawberries. Mary Jane's lips taste of strawberries. It doesn't really work that. And then you have all this stuff to do with Sandman as well, which just feels a bit too much in this film. At the same time, though, I never really understood what was going on with the black Spider-Man suit, which Peter got on the stage. Like, at one stage in the film, you see the Venom symbiote taking over Peter's body and everything, and you think, oh, this is how he gets his black Spider-Man suit. But then when he gets the Venom symbiote off him in that whole church and everything, in the church bell and everything, and then the Venom symbiote goes onto Eddie Brock's body, Eddie Brock becomes Venom. But why didn't Peter become Venom? Now, it might be explained in the comics, and I have no personal connection to the comics or anything like that. I've never read the Spider-Man comic books or anything like that. I've never read any comic book ever before, though. So, it may be explained a bit better in the comics, but it was not explained well in this film why Peter had the Venom symbiote all over him at one point, and he just got a black Spider-Man suit. But then, when the Venom symbiote takes over Eddie Brock, he becomes Venom. I didn't really get that. Like, what's the difference between Eddie Brock and Peter Parker? I didn't fully understand that in the film. They didn't really explain that well. And at the same time, though, in terms of Eddie Brock, you know, he has this quote-unquote girlfriend in the film, Gwen Stacy. Where the hell did Gwen Stacy come from? Honestly, we've never met Gwen Stacy up to this point in this Spider-Man trilogy, which doesn't make any sense in the context of the film, because apparently Gwen Stacy's been in the same college as Peter, and in the same science class as Peter as well. But the thing is, though, we've never met Gwen Stacy before, not in any of the previous Spider-Man films, even though she's been at the same college as all the main characters, and at the same time, though, her father is apparently head of the police force. You've never met him before either, and it's just bad planning there. And honestly, Bryce Dallas Howard is fine as Gwen Stacy and everything. It's actually quite nice to see Bryce Dallas Howard in this film, because I'm quite a fan of her as an actress, but honestly, I don't know, what the hell was a Gwen Stacy character doing in there? And honestly, that just didn't really work for me, I gotta admit. And at the same time, though, this is the film that we have, you know, Harry Osborn talks about how Mary Jane tips her straight to the strawberries. I know I've mentioned that about 3 times already in this review, but honestly, just that moment made me laugh out loud unintentionally so much at one stage. Honestly, I just burst out laughing when that scene came on, you know, when Harry Osborn was facing off against Peter Parker going, Mary Jane's lips taste of strawberries. I literally just burst out laughing. Unintentionally, that scene's not meant to be funny, at least I don't think it is anyway. Honestly, it just made me laugh out loud, and at the same time, though, you get the whole dancing sequence of Peter Parker. I mean, he danced quite a few times in the film, and there's one sequence in particular when he's in the jazz club where Mary Jane's now working, and he's trying to impress Mary Jane after, you know, they've kind of broken up everything, and basically he's in the jazz club, and he just starts doing this dance and everything, and honestly, the choreography was great, by the way, and clearly Tobey Maguire's a good dancer. But I just kind of sat there in that scene where, you know, Peter Parker's dancing in the jazz club thinking, you'd never ever get this in a Spider-Man movie nowadays. And that's why I absolutely love this sequence. I mean, it was rubbish, and it didn't really make any sense why he was acting this way, in my opinion. It might be because of the symbiote, but they didn't really make that clear. And honestly, I just kind of sat there thinking, you'd never get this in a Spider-Man movie, or in a current movie nowadays. Honestly, I just sat there laughing my head off, just thinking, like, the whole dance sequence in the jazz club, it's literally like something out of the Blues Brothers. And honestly, I just kind of sat there thinking, this is brilliant, because it's so different than any comic movie nowadays, and I've enjoyed the hell out of it, for the wrong reasons, can I point out, but I'm enjoying the hell out of this dance sequence in the jazz club in the film, and honestly, there's just so many parts of the film which don't really work as well. I mean, the whole third act of the film is really messy and just a bit all over the place, and at the same time, though, spoilers here, you haven't seen Spider-Man 3, but in the end, you know, this film came out in 2007, you've had a long time to see it, but spoiler in case you haven't seen Spider-Man 3, apparently, Sandman was the one who killed Uncle Ben in the first Spider-Man film, and honestly, when that scene came up, when that revelation came up in this film, I literally just said out loud, that doesn't make any sense, because in the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man film, it's shown that it's meant to be that other criminal that's killed him, and apparently, no it wasn't, it was Sandman. I don't really think that makes much sense, and honestly, that didn't really work in the film either, and it is just, it's all over the place. It's really messy, it's really stupid, and honestly, you can tell there was some bad planning going on in this film, and you can tell that Venom was also shoehorned in there as well. But at the same time, though, I've got to admit, I still found a lot of perks in this film. I still enjoyed a lot of parts of it. I do actually think there's a lot of quality on the screen. I mean, this film has Sam Raimi's direction all over it, and honestly, that's more than I can say for most comic book movies nowadays. Honestly, Sam Raimi's direction is all over this film, even some of his horror direction, you know, he previously directed some of the Evil Dead films. Like, there's one scene in particular where you see the Venom symbiote taking over Peter's body, and it's shot like it's a scene out of a horror movie, and that scene actually works really well in the film. And at the same time, though, the film also has this fantastic musical score by Christopher Young, which just works so well in the film. Honestly, so many scenes in this film are made better just by Christopher Young's score in this film. Honestly, I just kind of sat there in some of the scenes in the film, and just hearing Christopher Young's score was incredible. Honestly, it really was. Like, it sounded like some of Danny Elfman's previous work in some, like, I don't know, the Tim Burton Batman movies, you know, Batman and Batman Returns. Honestly, it sounded like some of Danny Elfman's previous work and everything. And honestly, I've got to admit, if I didn't know that Danny Elfman didn't compose this film before I watched it, I would have thought it was a Danny Elfman score. And that's not taking anything away from Christopher Young, because I do think he made his own score, but at the same time, though, he uses the Danny Elfman motives, you know, he uses the Danny Elfman melodies and everything that you've heard in the previous Sam Raimi Spider-Man films, and uses them to his advantage in this film. Honestly, the musical score is brilliant. I really dug the musical score of the film, and I thought it made a lot of scenes better than they really had any right to be. And at the same time, though, the performances are all great in the film, in my opinion. I mean, everyone, well, I wouldn't say they're great, but at the same time, though, everyone is doing good with the parts they're given. In the end, you know, Tobey Maguire does play it believable when he's going through all this stuff as Peter Parker. And at the same time, though, I also really enjoyed J.K. Simmons in the film, yet again, as J. Jonah Jameson. Although I must admit, he was underused in this film, in my opinion. Honestly, he's only in about 2 or 3 scenes, and I was just kind of sitting there thinking, I want to see more J. Jonah Jameson. He's in loads of Spider-Man 2, but he was not in this film as much. I mean, when he's in this film, he's chewing up the screen in the best way possible, but I wish we got to see more of him. And at the same time, though, I do think Thomas Haden Church does a good job as Sandman. And let's talk about Sandman here. It's clear that, you know, Sam Raimi clearly wanted Sandman as a villain in this film. In fact, from when I was reading up about this film on Collider, apparently, you know, Sam Raimi and Tobey Maguire, you know, Spider-Man himself, wanted Sandman as the main villain in this film, but because of the growing popularity surrounding Venom at the time, before this film came out, Venom was shoehorned in the film by Sony, you know, the production company who, you know, made this film and everything, produced this film. So basically, what you have in the end is all this Venom stuff in the film, which doesn't really make any sense, yet they focus on it so much in the film, and then you have all the Sandman stuff, which is so clearly what Sam Raimi wanted to do in this film. Honestly, yeah, the whole New Goblin stuff makes sense, because you have the whole setup in the end of Spider-Man 2, so that makes sense to the film, but then the whole Sandman stuff, just, it works in the film. That was a weird thing. It kind of works, but at the same time, no, it does feel a bit too much in some sequences, but you can clearly tell that the villain that Sam Raimi wanted to focus on in this film was Sandman. Honestly, the Sandman transformation scene, when you see, you know, Sandman become Sandman, I don't know what the characters are called, but when you see Sandman become Sandman in the scene, it's such a beautiful scene. Honestly, it's one of my favourite scenes in the entire Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. Honestly, it really is. When you see Sandman become Sandman, and you just hear this fantastic score from Christopher Young coming in the background and everything, and it's just so fantastic. Honestly, it really is. And it's apparently as well, according to IMDb, that scene alone took 2 months to make. And honestly, you can really tell that Sam Raimi wanted Sandman as the main villain of the film, because that all makes a bit more sense in the context of the film. And I still don't think they really planned it well, that apparently he killed Uncle Ben. I still don't think that was planned well. But, saying all that though, it still worked more in the context of the film than the whole Venom storyline. Also, I thought Christopher Young's Sandman theme worked really well in the film as well. And, you know, the Sandman stuff worked to me, for the most part, although it did feel a bit too much in some moments. But I just wish we got to focus on the Sandman stuff a bit more, because that's clearly what Sam Raimi wants to do. But unfortunately, the Venom stuff is shoehorned in there, and it doesn't really work at all either. And at the same time, though, I've got to admit, you know, I did actually quite like the ending of the film. I liked the last 5 minutes of the film. You know, seeing Peter Parker, Mary Jane, and Harry Osborn all together one last time. Because in the end, you know, those have been the main 3 characters of all 3 Sam Raimi Spider-Man films. And then seeing them together at the end of this film, I actually thought it worked really well. It felt like a fitting ending to Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. It felt like the ending that Sam Raimi always wanted. But unfortunately, though, you have the whole Venom stuff, which is shoehorned into the film, which doesn't really work with everything else that Sam Raimi wanted in this film. But at the same time, though, the ending felt like a fitting ending to Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. Seeing, you know, Mary Jane and Peter Parker get back together, seeing Harry Osborn die as well. I thought that was all a fitting ending. And at the same time, though, it was good seeing a cameo from Willem Dafoe in there as a Green Goblin one last time in this film. I did quite like that. I kind of did expect it after he had a small cameo in Spider-Man 2, so I thought he might have a cameo again in this film, and he did, and I quite enjoyed that moment. And at the same time, though, I did enjoy watching the film. I've got to admit, I never felt bored in this film, because I was having such a fun time with some of the sequences, which just shouldn't work. And, you know, in the end, I feel sorry for Sam Raimi in this film, because he's talked about his disappointment in this film. He's talked about how he didn't really like making it, and how he didn't like the end result as well. And you completely understand why. Honestly, when you hear that he wanted Sandman as the main villain, it makes, you know, so much more sense. And you can clearly tell that the Venom stuff is just shoehorned in there. They don't really know what they're doing there. And honestly, it is a bit disappointing in the end. Honestly, this film is bad, and it is all over the place, and it is messy. And even so, I enjoyed watching it. If someone came to me and said I didn't like Spider-Man 3, I'd probably agree with all the reasons why they didn't. But at the same time, though, I've got to admit here, just personally, I enjoyed the hell out of watching this film because it was so different than all these other comic movies you get nowadays. And you know, maybe not for the best reasons, but that's kind of why I enjoyed it at the same time though. I'm going to be honest with you, which I am being. Honestly, I really enjoyed watching the film for all the wrong reasons, but you know what? That's fine, because I still found this film really enjoyable, even so it's actually quite bad. But hey, I still enjoyed watching this film anyway. And so, all in all, I'm going to say that Spider-Man 3, I'm going to say it's a 6 out of 10. Honestly, like I said, if you came to me with all these reasons why I didn't like this film, I could probably agree with all those reasons. But the thing is though, when I was watching the film last night, I just had a huge grin on my face, far more than I really should have, because it was just so different than any comic book movie made nowadays, which is kind of why I liked it so much. Honestly, you never find this in an MCU movie, or DC movie for that matter, and that's kind of why I liked it so much. The fact that it was different, and the fact that it stood out, maybe not in the best way, but it did stand out. And honestly, the fact that this film has literally become a meme, you know, just when you're seeing Peter Parker dancing and everything, and the whole thing, you know, with Mary Jane's lips taste of strawberries. I know I've mentioned that so many times, but honestly, that scene just made me laugh out loud unintentionally in the film. That scene just completely caught me off guard because it was so funny, and for the wrong reasons. And at the same time though, even so, the whole Venom stuff does feel completely out of place, and even so there are some inconsistencies with the whole Sandman storyline in this film, I still enjoyed watching it all. I still thought it was fun to watch. I still thought there was some energy to the film that I still really liked. I still liked quite a lot of moments of the film. I still like the whole Aunt May storyline. I mean, that's one thing I never really talked about in my review of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films, but I think the Aunt May storylines in all these films are actually really good. I really like seeing Aunt May in this film. In fact, when she was on screen, I thought, wow, you know, you're actually giving a really good performance in this film, which is just so wacky and so stupid and just all over the place. You know, you have all this stuff to do with Aunt May, which actually feels really realistic, but then the rest of the film doesn't and everything. And at the same time, though, you know, the film is a bit outdated as well. Bear in mind, this film was made in 2007, and so some of the CGI, you can clearly tell is CGI, and there are some other problems in the film as well. Actually, there were many other big problems in this film as well. It's just, it is a bad film in the end, but I enjoyed watching it. I've got to be honest here. I enjoyed watching this film. I thought it was fun to watch. I liked the energy. You know, Sam Raimi's direction is all over this film. And even so, it didn't work in so many aspects. It still worked for me in a really weird way. It is bad, but that's kind of why I liked it so much. And honestly, I just had a far more enjoyable time with this film than I really should have. And so, all in all, I'm going to say Spider-Man 3 is a 6 out of 10 for me. Anyway guys, what do you think of Spider-Man 3? Please comment down below and let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Anyway guys, thank you as always for watching, and if you haven't yet, please do click down below and like subscribe on this video, and look forward to many more both film and TVs come very soon on this channel. See you guys again soon, but bye for now, bye!